You do not want to leave these problems to the next generation. That's not what I want somebody's legacy to be, is to be a person who's not responsible. And they'll figure it out. No, I don't want, you've worked so hard your entire life and you struggled and you've created a legacy of finance, but also of values, of relationships. You don't want to see that go down the drain after you're not here anymore and have families fighting. Hello and welcome to the Julia Gino Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be discussing one of my wife's favorite topics. I mean, she loses sleep over this topic. That's how much she loves this topic. The topic of estate planning, Julia. And we're going to introduce our guest in 1 minute, but I just had to get this off my chest because for the past 18 months, yes, 18 months, 1-8, I have been sweating. I have been fretting. I have been stressing over creating an irrevocable trust for the family and to try to dot the I's, cross the T's. It was really painful. Not gonna lie to you, but it was well worth it. And where I started 20 years ago to where I am today, it's been a complete journey. But the irony and the enjoyment of it was we were in the office yesterday at the attorney's office and my wife walks in with my son. My wife sits down and she's like, okay, I'm ready to go. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe how easy she got off. All she did was sign a little document and off to the races. And explain that situation. Explain that feeling.
The second you said that, I was like, how easy I got off. Well, I had 6 children. Okay.
We're not talking about that. It's always about you. I'm talking about not you. I'm talking about this situation.
Honestly, I'm glad that we're having this conversation today. And I'm glad that our guest is on here because this conversation can be overwhelming and confusing. And so what I used to do is my husband will take care of it. And I walk into the office as I did yesterday, sign my name. They're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But I think the importance is, that's why we became money coaches, Gino, is because I think, especially as a married couple, that we should both understand what's going on. Even if it's confusing and we're not clear on what it's just the beginning steps of learning about the finances and the legacy. It's super important. And that's why I'm excited for this.
Enough about you. Okay, that's it.
That's me.
Today's guest is Wendy Michelle. I'm holding up her book. She's the author of the international #1 bestseller, Just in Case Solutions, a practical 10-step life planning workbook. She shares how to organize essential, personal, financial, medical, and legal details for peace of mind. Yes, Julia, my peace of mind as well as yours. Get ready for a thoughtful, empowering conversation on planning for the unexpected. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Thank you so much for having me and sharing your experience that you just recently had.
Yeah.
Wendy, I'll even share another one that's really near and dear to my heart. I've shared this a few times, and I'm sure that you could probably relate to this. In 2007, I'm sitting at my dad's house. There's the priest and there's the accountant. My father is passing away, and priest is there for last rites. And that is when I understood that you have to plan for these things. For it's going to happen eventually. The problem that my parents faced was they waited to the last second. My mom could not properly grieve. They weren't in the right headspace. Although they did take some steps and some actions, they just waited too long. And for anybody listening to this, I don't want you to be in a home where your family's trying to grieve and you're trying to figure out next steps. And listen, it's not only about saving money and it's really about trying to direct the future. I'm sure that they didn't want to leave my brother and myself with this kind of responsibility. And then all of a sudden it's up to us. What do we do? Then we start fighting. It's always better to be able to direct and to guide your legacy and to start creating it today. And you may be listening to this and you may be saying, wow, this is overwhelming. Where do I start? Well, this is where Wendy comes in. Wendy, where should somebody start? If they haven't started, where's the first place to start when you're thinking about your legacy and your estate planning?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity, and hopefully we'll touch on a few people out there that will be able to take some proactive action and make a difference for their loved ones. Whether it is an unexpected accident, illness, or loss of life, trying to locate essential documents or managing everyday tasks, just like paying bills during a difficult time in someone's life, it is emotional, It is confusing and it is very overwhelming. So we need to all ask ourselves, like, what can we do now to help the ones that we love the most while we're still able to do so? And
Mm-hmm.
if someone listening is in a relationship and you're the person that handles a task, like you were mentioning earlier, if you're one person and your loved one, they don't want to know, they don't want to learn how, I want you to take the time and teach them. If they don't want to learn, write it down. They can reference it later. That simple task can shift their feelings of anxiety, panic, grief to those more positive emotions like appreciation, relief, gratitude by leaving a simple task like writing down those instructions for them to reference later. Because yes, many of us procrastinate. And why do we put this stuff off? Like, let's think about that. Is it avoidance? Is it fear? Anxiety? Maybe it's anxiety for you. Maybe it's anxiety for your loved one. Maybe they don't want to lose control, or they feel like they can't trust anybody. Or maybe that this topic is super awkward and very uncomfortable for so many people. Sometimes there's people in a family where one person really, really wants to talk about it and the other person doesn't want to talk about it at all. And they just completely shrug them off. That struggle is personal and it is real. And so are the consequences of doing absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's not all forget how the pandemic affected all of us. We weren't even allowed in the hospitals to be able to visit our loved ones. If we are to become weakened for an extended period of time, we need to push all of those roadblocking feelings aside and do what is best for our loved ones in order to help ourselves, and vice versa. It's amazing to me the number of people who will talk to me, a complete stranger. They'll open up, tell me their fears, their stories, the struggles, but yet they avoid sharing any of this with their loved ones. So we ask ourselves, when it comes time for the ones that you love the most, do you share or not share, and why?
Mm-hmm.
We all want to make things easier for the ones that we love. We all do. A will and an estate plan, those are extremely important, but they might not cover everything. And sometimes it's those little tiny overlooked details that cause like those biggest headaches. And recording details, being proactive and giving them something to reference is what we can do. And if you're not ready to talk about it, it's okay. You can just start the process in the comfort of your own home.
I have the solution before.
Solution.
There's a 2-step solution here. The first step is if you don't want to talk about it, or you're avoiding it, or you're afraid, money is just the symptom. We are money coaches, Julia and myself. Yeah. I think it's so important to understand the patterns and the behaviors and the beliefs that you've adopted when you were younger. And as you got older, unconsciously, you're just acting as if you were a child sometimes and you don't understand. And it's interesting because there are something called money archetypes in money coaching. Money archetype is a character that's really within inside of you and how you're acting. So the archetypes that Julia and I adopted over our relationship was, I was the tyrant and she was the innocent. I was the one who was controlling. I was the one who was always worried about the money. I was the one who had fear. Right. I was the deliverer, the provider. And yet Julia was the one who stayed at home and she really didn't want to have anything to do with money.
No, correct. And I want to, something, Wendy, you said was, why do we not, because this is a very common theme. I'm sure you see a lot where the man works, he's usually in charge of the money, and the wife takes care of the children. In our situation, That's what happened. And over the years, I feel like Gino was so good at it that I was like, well, he's good at it, so therefore I'm not going to even bother, because you know what I mean? And so I think over years and years and years of that, you become so detached from it that, just recently, just this year, probably the past 6 months, because our money coach, she actually said, you both need to sit down. And Gino, you're going to have to explain to Julia exactly what's going on with the finances and all of this. And for a second, I was overwhelmed, and I thought, no, it's going to be okay.
It's
because
interesting.
You have to learn how to talk to me in my language.
But it's interesting. But Wendy, it's interesting because I have 3 adults. We have 6 children. 3 of them are adults. Right. They're all running their own businesses. Right. I am on monthly calls with them with the accountant. They all have savings accounts. They're all invested in my deals. I think they're a lot more financially savvy than my wife. It's because I just never. And so that's the first part of the solution
Right.
is if you're struggling with that, whether it's a money coach, whether it's a life coach, I don't want to get into the therapy, but maybe you need therapy. The second part is pick up the book.
Right.
Don't be overwhelmed by the book, but start jumping into it. See where you are. If you're in the very beginning, start in the very beginning. Contact Wendy little by little, and don't be overwhelmed. I think that's what I would do as far as starting out if you don't feel like talking about it, because you do not want to leave these problems to the next generation. That's not what I want somebody's legacy to be, is to be a person who's not responsible. And they'll figure it out. No, I don't want, you've worked so hard your entire life and you struggled. And you've created a legacy of finance, but also of values, of relationships. You don't want to see that go down the drain after you're not here anymore and have families fighting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's very, very true. You know, one thing that I have told a few people is that there's a lot of options out there. And that's a good thing, because that means that there's a real need for tools like this, because most people put off planning until it's too late. I hear words like, here's the word. I hear things like, Wendy, I'm not ready for that workbook yet. But then I also hear, Wendy, I really wish I had this when.
Yes.
And it is followed by such an emotional, personal experience. So I would advise someone to just pick one that feels right for you and make time for it.
Yeah.
Just in case solutions, it's the comprehensive approach. Okay. It's extremely detailed. I don't want people to get overwhelmed, because one of the things that makes this unique compared to other things that are out there is the versatility. It is made not just for an individual. It's also designed to guide both an individual or a couple, allowing you to organize your information together or separately.
And it's funny, I want to know the steps. Wendy, give me the framework. I want to have the meat. My wife is more of like, well, how do we work with this? So we're gonna tackle both sides.
Because there's so much
emotion,
and I think that's what it comes down. Yes, you have the steps, just like you guys are talking about.
Yes,
but then there's the emotional part of having patience with the other person, because a lot of times people avoid, right? Because they're so freaked out by the whole idea of it. Do you know what I mean? Like when we had to do our will and we had to put someone for our children for
guardian.
I'm sitting there thinking, this is awful. Yeah. Like, I don't want to do this. This is an awful feeling. And so a lot of people don't do it because of that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so it's similar.
We all want to live forever. Right. And we want to be there for our kids and the ones that we care about. But accidents and illnesses happen every day. Yeah. Tragedies are sad. Death is the one thing that we all have in common, regardless of our race, age, gender, or background.
Right.
Taking those proactive steps now, recording details, is going to reduce the stress and the confusion for your family members during those challenging times. Yeah. I personally worry about what would happen for my daughter, what would happen if I was diagnosed with dementia, or if I had an accidental death. Right? She might lack the knowledge to handle my entire life or manage my affairs. I mean, she doesn't even live in the same state as me. I don't want her coming to where I live and then going on a scavenger hunt looking for answers.
Right.
It's an emotional time for everyone. And the more proactive we are with organizing those details for the loved ones that we have to help them avoid making those really heavy decisions. I mean, I know it would benefit my daughter, so she wouldn't have to say, what would mom want? Because we all want to have, our friends and family have good memories of us and not the long lasting thoughts, gigantic mess we left for them to figure out. And the benefits, it's going to give us peace of mind, right? And it's also going to help our loved ones go from grief to gratitude, rather than having them put their hands on their head saying things like, what do I do now? I have no idea where to start. How do I know if my uncle had a safe deposit box? At the time, those questions for people, they feel absolutely endless. I mean, have either one of you witnessed or maybe yourself seen someone go through a situation where a detailed tool like this would have made a difference?
Percent. Absolutely. And it just like you said, it's the whole family is affected. And even if they're adults with their own children and grandchildren, the whole family was affected, and it actually caused issues in with relationship issues. And that's the problem too. And I do want to say though, from someone who avoided it my whole life in our marriage, since we did start talking about it openly, and that you do have a fear behind saying, oh my gosh, if something happens, who am I going to rely on? And it's always like you're looking for an outside source. And at one point, or when our son turned old, like he's 23 now, I was like, okay, he's going to take care of it. And so my thought process went from my husband to take care of it to my son. And I thought, oh, that's very, very wrong of me. I'm actually sending it to somebody else. I'm responsible.
But you're not the only one.
But I think that's important. And what it did was it actually gave me a little bit of peace because, okay, if something happens, it will be okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I did get.
So Wendy, I know that the stats are about 70% of people in the country do not have an estate plan. And that means that they do have one. It's just with the state. It's not theirs. It's not something that they direct. But I have a question here about, and we're talking about overlooked details. Let's get into something that's important that I think anybody listening to today should be doing. Documents, savings accounts. How can they get that all in order? So at least if Gino's not here, Julia can have access. I can share with you after you answer what I've been doing. But what can somebody start doing today? Something that won't take hours and hours and hours, but something that's a huge step. You even mentioned safe deposit boxes. So can we go through that a little bit and just give people a starting point where they can start?
Yeah. Well, I'll use my workbook as an example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So dividing something down into more simplistic steps makes it easier. It makes it more manageable and less daunting because let's face it, none of us want to do this, right? But it is something that we all should. Okay. So if you're able to break down things into more manageable steps, it makes it less overwhelming. So if you take things in chunks, right? And you just say, hey, look, I just want to look at everything personable right now. I mean, usernames and passwords or devices. I mean, because we get so used to these cell phones, but sometimes we might not have our face recognition to be able to access something. And you might need the codes or passwords to be able to get into it.
Yeah.
And so if you sit there and if you do take the comprehensive approach and you want to leave, let's say, a roadmap for someone to follow, breaking that down and just saying, hey, you know what, this weekend, I am just going to focus on my financial documents. And what Just In Case Solutions does not do, it does not ask how much money you have. That's not the purpose of this particular tool. It's going to ask you what accounts you have and where they're located. It doesn't ask who gets what in your will. It asks if you have a will or don't have a will and where is that will located. There's many people that have an amazing estate plan, but then their child or their niece or their nephew is going on a scavenger hunt for their house. Where is it located? Once someone knows something exists, they're going to be able to act accordingly, but they need to know that it exists first.
Yeah.
So if you know an account exists, you're going to be able to find out how many funds are in there and who the beneficiaries are. But going through the exercise, if you say, you know what, I just want to take this weekend and we're going to do all our financial accounts, maybe all of our insurance policies, let's document that. So then my loved one's going to know what I have and where things are located to be able to do that. Maybe the next step you say, hey, you know what? There might be a single person living out there that doesn't have any children, but they have a beloved pet. And they want to make sure that that pet's taken care of because sometimes we love these fur babies better than humans. And that is extremely important to some people. Maybe you want to document those things first. So my suggestion would be is just start someplace. You don't have to do this in order. Start on step 5. If you're having, a terminal illness, unfortunately, that's coming into play. I mean, I had a conversation with a good friend of mine the other day whose mom's been diagnosed with dementia. She wants to capture absolutely everything now. So she's going to be able to handle everything for many years to come. So it can be used for other things rather than end of life planning.
It's interesting because what I've done over the last couple of years on a Google Doc, I'll have my savings accounts, my checking accounts. I have several homes, mortgages on all the homes. I have my whole life insurance policies, even the ones for the children, all that. I have my insurance policies for the various homes. I have all of that written down on a document so they can access it. And every year, policy changes or a homeowner's policy changes. It gets updated. It's once a year. I also have a property log for every single property that I own. So the property log for each property, they can access that. They know that
about the kids.
Oh no, I'm talking about the whole estate plan. You've seen that. You've seen that big
I
long
think
doc.
it's good though.
And then what I do is I print it out and I'll leave it in the safe. And then once a year, so it's on a Google Drive, but it's also a hard copy. And it makes me have to update it at least once a year to make sure that everything's up to date and according. Yes.
I think too. I mean, this is years ago when we were younger. You know how on the refrigerator it was always like the police, fire department. There's all the numbers,
medication.
Yeah. The neighbor's number, like emergency numbers. And I almost feel like we went away from that because that was for like, if like we as kids needed something, that's who we would call. And so our parents would leave a step-by-step, here's what you do if there's an emergency. And I do think that kind of went away with the cell phone stuff. But I do have at home because we've left the kids sometimes. I mean, they're older. In case there was a leak and there's a leak of water, what do? Here's the plumber's number. And it's a list of things to do in case of emergencies, not deadly emergencies, but you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it's almost like people are too afraid to look at this because it's almost like if I'm not here anymore, it's a little scary. Yeah. But I love the idea of what you have and that you can just start anywhere and little by little put that in, and peace of mind comes because once, especially the children or your spouse is understanding what's happening, I do feel like it opens up different, like your relationships, I think, do connect. Now I'm talking about relationships.
Yeah, you have in the book a responsibility checklist. I'm assuming that's probably what Julia's talking about. You want to expand upon that?
Yeah, it's one of the unique things in this comprehensive approach. So inside there is a 4-page interactive responsibility checklist. So that guides your loved one or designated person. Okay. So some people assign a designated person to be able to handle their affairs. This checklist is going to ease that administrative burden by simplifying tasks and tracking progress while providing clear information on what you have and where things are located, not only physically, but also within the workbook itself. So for example, let's say I didn't share with my daughter that I had or didn't have life insurance. Okay. She's going to I don't know if I'd be able to show it here, but let's see if this works. This is 2 of the pages of the interactive checklist. So someone that might not know what to do or where to start, they can at least have guidance here. My daughter would get to a point where it would say life insurance. It's going to tell her to locate those life insurance policies that are found in step 6, contact the company or professional. It's going to assist with how to claim those death benefit for those beneficiaries. She then can simply flip to step 6 within the book and be able to find all the details that I wrote down regarding that life insurance policy. And when she's done, I don't know about you, but we both like checklists. We feel very it's satisfying to start checking off the list, right? Some people are checklist people. We're checklist people. But so it actually really helps, and some people who have never gone through a loss of a loved one, or maybe it's a distant relative that you find yourself needing to step in and handle their affairs, having a complete roadmap for you to be able to reference what you have and what accounts you have and what bills need to stop and cars that need to be, transferred or sold. It's just it's really nice to be able to have like very detailed that they can go through and handle things the way that, your loved one would like them to be handled.
This may be a little harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think adults need to act like adults. Yeah. And I think the fathers and the mothers really need to buckle down, swallow it, and say, I need to do this, and stop making excuses and have communication with your children. My son was there at the office. He probably knows almost as much as I do about what a SLAT is, about how he's ultimately going to be the trustee of this thing. He already knows the assets that we own, money coming in and out, because he's part of it. So I think it's very important for parents to at least start and have a conversation amongst ourselves. And then once we have a sort of a grasp, sort of understanding, you need to bring the children in, because you want them to be part of this whole process. The legacy is not just the money. It's just not the 30 multifamilies that I own. It is the YouTube pages. It's the books we've written. It's the values you've written.
You're also teaching them to be adults. And I think I think sometimes we try to protect our children. We don't want to burden them with all these things.
And you want to burden me with these things,
yes,
though, huh? Okay.
Absolutely.
Burden me, but not burden the kids. I got it. That's good. I got it.
You did great this past 18
Thanks,
months.
baby.
You really did. But I think we do. We want to protect our kids. We want to pamper them sometimes to the point where we're actually doing them a huge disservice. We really are. And I think we're putting our fears on them. Well, I don't want to bother them because I don't want them to have to struggle with what. But I promise you, they do want to learn. They do want to know.
Me trying to be harsh and all. Have you seen that? Where
that was
parents,
you being harsh?
Well, I mean, just like the parents got to buckle up. And that's what I'm saying. The parents got to suck it up. Have you seen this situation? And can you give parents some advice on how they can start having that conversation and start even planning on it? Because I think it's really important great that they know what's going on, but I think the whole family should know what's going on.
I try to encourage, if I work one-on-one with somebody, I try to encourage them to share what they're sharing with me with their children. There's a lot of people, it's almost like a fear. And it's that avoidance. It's that, I don't know if some people struggle with letting go of having control. It's hard. I mean, I started this is more than 20 years ago when my daughter was little. I mean, my daughter's in her 30s now. So it's different when you might be over a certain age of 80. That is a little bit real to them. And the more that they feel that they talk about it, the more the reality is coming. And so I would love for more people to feel comfortable, take that uncomfortable approach and just have the conversation. Or I've run into this more than once, someone who completes the book and they don't want to talk about it. They just say, hey, I've completed this for you. I love you. And it is in this waterproof, fireproof safe, and it is here for you. It's a way to not talk about it, but yet provide them everything that they need to know. And I'm so glad you had mentioned a safe, because a lot of the estate planning attorneys out there, they advise you not to put certain documents in a safe deposit box because banks are not open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And if emergency happens and there's a power of attorney or a healthcare proxy and you're not able to get that, having that easily accessible inside your home or a waterproof, fireproof safe that somebody else has access to, that they know where that is and they can get that important legal document if you need it, is very important.
I have to go there for a second because because both of you did mention this. And I think a lot of people that I've experienced, and I think you to a point too, it's the control. Some parents, some people, I'm going to say people, do have a control where I can't trust anyone. So therefore I'm not sharing it with anyone because I'm the only one that could take care of this. No one will understand it. They'll mess it up if they know, and I don't trust them. And I'm here to protect you. And they'll use those phrases. And I think we've experienced that through money coaching. And that's just a tyrant in us saying that.
It's the fear
of no one else can do it but me. And I just encourage you to just to think about that and think about how that's not helping your family, because it's one of those things we need to let go of that control and start trusting other people and teaching them. And it's okay. It's okay to let other people in. So that's definitely something. I'm sure you dealt with that a lot. So
yeah. I mean, it's also, yes, organizing all the things that are important. You can put it all in a workbook, but it's also kind of taking a look around your house too, right? What do you want your loved ones walking into if by chance something should happen? I know all of us have heard this story, right? Why clean my car? Because it's just going to wind up a mess a day later, right? Think about like your home office or your file cabinet. What do you want your loved one walking into? You want them to walking into something that is organized and that's going to be able to be, easy for them to find things and understand. Now, we need to embrace who we are. Some of us are neat freaks. Some of us are slobs. We do not need to change who we are as a person to organize what matters most. Okay. As long as we let them know what we have and where things are located, they're going to be able to act accordingly.
Yeah.
Out of the 10 steps, what are your favorite 1 or 2 steps out of the 10 in the workbook?
My favorite personally,
Yes.
you know what? I would have to say step 9. It might be my favorite because I feel like it touches on more personal items. Some people don't think about how many people volunteer in retirement and how many things that people are doing. And so I'll use my parents as an example. They are extremely active in retirement and they care about what they are doing. And so if something should happen to the one of them, I know that they would want me to step in and take care of their obligation for them, or at least let the organization know that the person is not going to be able to show up. So there's all those little things in step 9, subscriptions, memberships, all of those things that might linger on that someone might not think of that are outside of that estate plan.
That's great. We were just talking about subscriptions. So my wife is getting on a monthly call with me to go over our credit card bill too, as well. So making sure we get the Ring, making sure we get the Disney, Netflix.
You're the one
Hulu.
with all these shows that you need to watch. Okay. I got to get this. I got to get that. I got to cancel. I just go along with whatever you watch.
Wendy, as you hear us bickering on this side, I like to know what's the most challenging one for you and or for people that are embarking on this journey.
You know what? I'm gonna say 2. And I'll end with the happier one. The first challenging one probably would be the financial and legal documents. All the other stuff, I think a lot of people, but some people find that overwhelming. And I also feel that they struggle with account registrations to be able to try to avoid probate, right? Pick up the phone, call your financial advisor, ask the questions. Do I have my beneficiaries in place? Is my account registration the way that it should be? Do I need to add a trustee to one of my accounts? Do I need to have a TOD, which is a transfer on death? So if something happens to me, maybe you're just someone that has a savings account, a checking account, and you don't have anything else. And you want to make sure that, that's going to easily transfer to your child. Ask those questions. I think people struggle with that because they don't know what to ask. But the workbook would be able to provide you with those questions to think about to how to ask. And then the second one, I would say at the end of each step, there is a place for you to write a loving thought, a fun memory, or advice to your loved one. And I have seen people put pictures in there because, I'm not a writer, and they're putting pictures in there, or they're providing, a memory of when they first broke their arm or their first kiss, or all these amazing things that they're writing. And I would say that means 10 steps, 10 smiles that you're able to deliver when you're not able to do so.
I'm going to let Julia ask an emotional question, but this is the last one that really, really bothers me and troubles me and annoys me is when I hear people say, well, I'm poor or I don't have anything. Do I need an estate plan? I'd love to hear your answer to that. And I could even give you mine after. Well, you can probably guess what I'm going to say about that. But have you heard that in your practice? And what do you say to people who think that way or who just feel that way?
Well, I think sometimes they say that because they feel like it's going to cost them a lot of money to be able to go get one. Right? Because when you start diving into finding out, well, why do you feel that way? Well, I don't have the money to get a will, or I can't afford an attorney to make a trust. Or, right. So a lot of that I have seen that it's very personal and everybody's situation is different, so there's people out there that can help you. And there's services out there to be able to help you create a will that might not even have any money at all. There's also those things to be able to avoid probate. Look, I think it's very important. I think everybody should have those major documents, your power of attorney, your healthcare proxy, your DNR, your will. Put your house in a trust. I'm not an estate planning attorney, but there are ones out there and they're willing to help anybody that is willing to call and ask.
How did you get into this line of work? What made you
Well, I wanted to
go
know,
down and like write?
I wanted to know the emotional part of why you wrote the book, because the fact that you put in the,
You stealing my question?
yes,
You stealing my question?
stole it back.
Okay.
There's an emotional aspect to it, and I can see that. So I'm curious the story behind it.
Well, okay. So the idea came from both my professional and personal reflection, right? So many, many years ago, I worked for a large financial corporation and they acted as a fiduciary trustee. And that is when I saw firsthand at a young age how many people were unprepared. They struggled to organize just their beneficiaries, their file cabinets, document what really mattered most. So back then, we provided a file folder organizational packet to our clients, right? This was prior to smartphones existing. Not all houses had a computer, where you opened up the packet and you used those folder contents to create organization right within your own home file cabinet. And so what I noticed was that, look, some people, tossed it aside. They didn't even do it. Other people started it. They didn't finish it. So I offered to a few clients to go out and help. And that's when I looked at this system and I thought, well, this is not comprehensive enough. And so I started to ask myself, what about everything else that someone would need to know or act on? That folder packet, it was a great start, but I was really concerned about everything else. But at the time, I was a single parent and I was raising a little girl on my own. And I truly started to worry, kind of that overwhelming fear about what would happen should something happen to me. Would my parents know enough about my entire life? Would they know enough about my daughter's life to be able to raise her? And being the detailed person that I am, I just started to think about every single scenario, and I started to build my own system within my own file cabinet. So that file cabinet would speak for me and help my loved ones if something should happen to me. And so over the years, I just started sharing what I was doing with my friends and family. And there was this one friend who at the time was fighting a terminal illness. And she was the one that truly encouraged me she made me promise to create a solution and publish it so everyone could be able to do this in the comfort of their own home. She was the one that made me realize that, some people just don't know where to start. And frankly, other people are just not as organized as myself. And so now, more than 20 years later, second edition, I've turned my file cabinet organizational system that was easing the burden for my own family into something that I can hopefully encourage people to think beyond that typical file cabinet in a thoughtful, comprehensive way. So when the time comes for their loved ones to focus on what truly matters, again, it's like having a clear roadmap to follow rather instead of them scrambling to find some information.
I love that.
Wendy, where can the listeners get a hold of you?
So you can find me. I have a website, justincasesolutions.com. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
I was going to say that you and Julia are sort of like kindred spirits. You're sort of very organized with the checklists and with all the, would you like to wrap up the show?
Well, Wendy, I'm super thankful that you're on our show, because I think this is one of the things that a lot of us fear. And I think you've put it together so simple and organized, like Gino said, but there's still that emotional part behind it, which I absolutely love, because I think sometimes we think finances and there's no emotion. Everything is cut and dry, but you put that extra piece in it, which is so special because you can leave a piece of your heart in there to that next person. So I love that. So thank you for putting all of this together to share with the world. Yeah.
And I think for me, what I would say about this whole process is I hope people look at legacy through a different lens, not only just leaving things, but you're talking about leaving memories. You're talking about leaving, writings to people about, you're talking about leaving, all of this stuff that's personal. We haven't even gotten into if you have jewelry, all this other stuff that you don't really think of when you're leaving legacy. And I think it's important to do that. And
you're giving the story behind it all, really.
And here's the book. I'm holding it up just in case you got it on YouTube. It is a really comprehensive book. There's 10 steps broken down. And I would really start today. Start small and really start communicating with your family on what you want your legacy to look like.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you both so much. You're lovely. It's been an honor to be here today.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks, Wendy. We appreciate it. And as always, we will see you on next week's podcast. Take care, everybody.